Western countries want to put pressure on the Russian President Vladimir Putin following the war in Ukraine. That's why the US, G7 and its allies have imposed a price cap of $60 per barrel on Russia's oil sales. A price cap is usually placed to protect customers or if there is a scarcity in the market. But this time, it was specifically designed to use as a geopolitical and foreign policy tool against Putin. But Russia has found a way to dodge it, causing concern among Western officials, by building up a shadow fleet of aging oil tankers to circumvent Western markets. It has been called Russia's ghost, shadow, or dark fleet. Nearly 500 ships, many of them old tankers, bought by operators unknown to the market. Often the ships hide their locations or the origin of the crude carried from Russian ports, which may later be refined in other countries or even re-exported to the Western countries sanctioning the Kremlin. Intelligence firms now estimate that nearly 12% of world's shipping market is now dark and able to exploit regulatory gaps. The role of dark ships has become more important since the imposed price cap. So far, the sanctions imposed on Russia are not going according to the plan. But despite challenges, Western officials are still committed to the price cap and continue to introduce new sanctions. Tulay Kalyon Haznedaroglu, TRT World.
For more, let's bring in Andrei Kavataryu, an energy expert and Isira co-founder. He joins us now from Bucharest. Thank you very much for joining us today. Right, we've heard in the report from our colleague how this price cap is being circumvented, but can you help us understand how exactly is this cap circumvented, and what is a shadow fleet, why is it needed, and how does it operate?
Thank you very much for having me. So I think there are two options of bypassing the sanctions. One is the conventional way of finding other sellers, and we've seen that. Russia has found other sellers in the market, in the global market. But then there's this other option that you mentioned, the shadow or the dark fleet, which is basically a group of scrap quality oil tankers with a very opaque, let's say, ownership that are not carrying or benefiting from Western services, and they are finding alternative routes, both geographically and, let's say, from a legal point of view, to bypass some of the checks in order to carry this crude. But sanctions in itself had two actually aims. One was to affect the price, the selling price, and we've seen that this functioned for a while. And we've also seen the aim of affecting the cost structure of Russian oil sector. And I think this cost structure is still affecting this, because this fleet that has a very poor quality entails a very high maintenance costs or higher operation costs. The insurance level is very high. Then we have these routes, the diversified routes that are usually longer to new clients, translate into higher costs. And then the usual, let's say, global concerns and problems related to inflation and the cost of capital, that is affecting the cost structure of the oil sector. So experts are talking about a higher cost for the Russian economy, Russian oil sector, of $35 to $40 per barrel. So, of course, revenues are affected in some way by the price cap, but also the costs are very affected. Costs are increasing, and therefore margins are being affected, and margins are lower than they were a couple of years ago.
The EU has made it very clear, and it said it wants to reinforce a cap on Russia. But is there a way that the EU can really manage to reinforce a cap and that Russia will essentially actually abide by the cap?
That's a difficult question and a difficult topic. And sanctions are not meant to solve the issues by themselves, right? So, and sanctions have a limit, time-wise, a limit that can, really affect Russia. And we've seen actually that. But when it comes to solutions, we are basically having another iteration of the sanctions introduced last year. So a higher scrutiny, a higher granularity, if you want, on checking and monitoring this fleet and making sure that they are, insured or carrying the right volumes of and the right, let's say, crude from the destination to the end, that's one option. But obviously, this takes time. This translates into higher costs because a higher compliance rate that you need to check and put in place translates into higher costs. This has issues and challenges. And then there's also the option of tracking a bit the refined products, oil products. As you know, the EU especially has a ban on on Russian diesel. So basically, they are not importing directly from Russia, but we've seen Russia selling crude to other parties like China and India that are refining this crude and then selling the refined products to Europe. Now, Europe cannot afford to actually not buy these volumes, but they can ask for the crude that was acquired for these refined products to somehow abide to the price cap. So there are also some checks that can be put in place for refined products. But once again, sanctions are not perfect, and they are not meant to destabilize completely on their own the Russian oil sector. Is just one set of actions imposed against the Russian economy.
Very interesting. Andrei Kavataryu, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.